couple of years ago, we came up with the idea to build a farm-table restaurant right here in southern Tasmania. If I knew how hard it was going to be to build a restaurant in the middle of a paddock, I would never do it. Every step, every time something barrier comes up, you think, oh, I've got past that one. Oh, it's going to be easy now. Well, 18 months later and 25% over budget, none of it's been easy. Although it's starting to look like a restaurant, it's still going to be another couple of months before we can open, but it feels like the final stretch. So it's looking fantastic. Got the brick wall, the outside cladding. The boys are just lining the walls inside. Pretty soon, 35 hungry mouths in here to feed. My name is Matthew Evans. I was once a food critic living in Sydney. Now, I'm a pig farmer in country Tasmania. Life in the country has taught me a lot about food production, with many challenges along the way. And now, we're embarking on our most ambitious project yet. We want people to experience how we live and taste the food we eat. So we're building a restaurant right here on the farm. From critic to farmer to restaurateur, how hard can it be? It's not just the restaurant that needs to be finished. If we're going to feed 35 extra people a week, we need to put some serious work into our garden. I get hungry seeing piles of garlic and piles of potatoes side by side. Just add pork fat. This is what's known as, around here, as Tassie purple.
Signet purple.
Signet purple, yeah, sorry, signet purple. There's lots of different strains of it, I guess, but it's delicious and it grows well in this climate.
Look at that.
I know. As if you'd use the Chinese stuff when you can get that. As part of our garden expansion, we've hired a gardener, Jono, who has convinced me that a bigger, better polytunnel is desperately needed. The idea still makes me nervous, as the previous one was barely established before it blew down one night in a storm. This is the last rib of the new polytunnel. The old one was made of plastic. This one's made of metal. Ooh, watch your step.
You want to go that way? Step back. Just stand it up on the ground, and then if we lift at the same time, we can drop it into the sleeve. All right. So that 1 metre mark up to here is where our roll-up curtains will be. So we'll have a piece of plastic that'll go right over the top to these marks on either side.
Yep.
And then we'll have wind-up sides that'll allow us to get some airflow.
On both sides?
On both sides.
This sounds a lot more fancy than the previous one. Thank God for Jono. The wind's up, so certainly won't put the plastic on until the wind's really low. And then can this survive 120 k/h wind?
The steel will.
The steel will. Well, that's better than the...
Can't guarantee what will happen to the plastic.
That's better than the last one. To feed a restaurant every week will take more than just a polytunnel. I also need to make sure we make the most of any excess produce by having a stocked larder. And at the moment, I have a stack of black currants that need to be used. Black currants have heaps of pectin. Pectin's the thing in jam that helps it to set. And these are almost like a beginner's jam. So warm the sugar. The reason you warm the sugar is you want it to dissolve really quickly, because the longer you cook your jam, the less colour, less aroma it's got. So especially strawberry. Strawberry can go a bit brown and lose some of its fragrance if it's cooked for too long. I've actually popped a couple of plates in the freezer because when it's hot, you don't get a true indication of the texture it's going to be once it gets into the jar. So what you do is just dribble a little bit of the jam onto a very cold plate. Then you run your fingernail through it. And if you get a line that stays in the jam, that means it's not too runny and it's pretty close to being set. And this one's very close. Now I want to get it in the jars while it's still pretty hot. You can actually feel it thickening up as it cools down. There we go. And I've got a little bit to have for breakfast tomorrow. Having this wood cooker in the house is truly a joy. For the restaurant, I've ordered an even larger one, which will help provide for all my guests. But to feed about 3 dozen people every service, I'm starting to think I may need one even bigger.
Greg will be happy to see us.
Do you reckon, do you? I think he was happy to see the back of us last time.
My good mate Nick and I are heading north into the Highlands to a town called Bothwell and the historic Ratho Farm, a 19th century homestead where anyone can come and stay. It was here, a few months back, that Nick and I nearly burnt the place down. So we've returned in order to make amends.
Okay, fellas, welcome back.
Oh, welcome.
Good to see you.
We are welcome back. How's the oven looking? Have you done anything?
We've left it all for you guys.
Oh, let's go check that out. Around the side?
Yep.
Thanks to Greg and his camera phone, evidence exists of us lighting the farm's original oven, at his encouragement, I might add.
So we've got a bit of smoke bouncing back here, guys.
If we'd known that it hadn't been lit in over 100 years, there's no way we would have done it. But we did it, and this is the result.
Oh, that smell. You remember that smell?
Sure do. This was corrugated iron on this side, and it must have been birds flying in here. You can actually see a bit of the poo down the wall there, and they'd fly in for the last 100 years or so and nest, and this is matted birds' nests. What we didn't know, we just saw the outside, thought it looked pretty good. Gradually it smouldered from the inside, and as soon as it got enough oxygen, when it got to the top, flames started coming out. Thank God Greg saw it, otherwise the whole house would have gone up. So we clean that off.
Yeah.
Whoa. So while this may have been a bit of a disaster, I did love cooking in the oven. The wood-fired oven was amazing. It's made me think what I really need at the commercial kitchen is a wood-fired oven. Something bigger than this, maybe even, that you could bake in.
To say sorry, we've offered to cook dinner for guests and friends of the farm. And we thought we might make something that would have been eaten here over 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's the last of it.
All right, what do we need to do?
Get the meat on probably first.
Cool. All right, I'll do that.
Ratho Farm was founded in 1822 by Scotsman Alexander Reid, so a 19th century Scottish dish will be our main course tonight.
We're doing a stout and beef. An oyster? You got oysters?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do oyster stout pie, and with a few veggies in there. You know, we'll serve a big pie on the table and a big bowl of veggies next to it.
The beef is from a Scottish Highland cow, a hardy, shaggy-haired type of cattle, perfect for the bitter cold of both the Scottish and Tasmanian Highlands.
And stout next.
While the filling stews for a few hours, Nick and I have decided it's the perfect opportunity to play a few holes on Ratho Farm's golf course, the first and oldest in Australia.
There's a lot of sheep. Is that our gallery?
Yeah.
Due to the temperature sitting at -2 degrees,
I can't even feel my hands.
gumboots are the required attire at Ratho's. They're great for sleet, not to mention sheep manure.
All I can see is a big sheep pen.
It's that one. You've been wanting to get a run-up for this one, I reckon. Eye on the ball, left arm straight.
Wouldn't
Oh,
stand
it's
there.
freezing. Get your feet right. All right, let's go. Wind her up. Oh, I hit the fence.
Oh, laugh at me, and you're about 10 metres further on.
All right, got to clear that between the two star pickets.
Oh, come on.
It's going to be a long hole, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should we start again?
Alexander Reid, who founded the farm, hailed from the Scottish town of Leith, where the first laws of the game were formalised.
That's lovely.
Oh, hey! 4 sheep.
And just like back then, sheep coexist very well with golf, helping to keep the playing areas short.
Yes! 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 You know, I just got par. I give up.
Well done.
That's the best.
With this weather, 2 holes and 10 frozen fingers means it's time to head inside to finish the dinner. Nick and I have travelled up to Ratho Farm in Bothwell to make amends for burning down a centuries-old oven by cooking dinner for guests and friends of the farm. We've prepped the filling for a beef, stout and oyster pie, and I'm getting started on pudding.
I was going to do strawberry rhubarb crumble. You happy with that?
Is that your rhubarb?
Here's my rhubarb. It's really green but really good flavour.
How much time we got? We don't have a lot of time, do we?
No.
It's only an hour left. Wow.
And check out these. This is my mate Phil grows those, the guy that works at our place.
I can smell them. They're beautiful. Lots of people would reject that rhubarb because it's green, not red.
Compared to pretty much all the red stuff I've ever tried, this has got better flavour.
But it's a different variety, yeah?
Yeah, it's just a different variety. Was it the suet?
Suet. So suet pastry
Yep.
on top of the beef pudding.
Suet is the raw, unprocessed fat from around the kidneys of beef cattle.
And not forget the oysters.
Nick finishes off his pies with the oysters and tops them with the suet pastry before baking in the gas oven, the one we didn't burn down.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for giving us the chance to apologise and to make amends. Sorry. And hope you enjoyed dinner.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed your night. Thank you. Cheers.
There you go, folks. I'm going to put this in the middle and you can pass it around.
Although we've gone with an historic menu tonight, this style of farm cooking and eating is exactly the type of experience I hope to provide at Fat Pig Kitchen, and this has been a good rehearsal for me.
Pudding's on the table. Help yourself.
But the big take-home for me from this experience is the desire for a large wood-fired oven of my own. And like the one at Ratho's, I want one that will still be here in 100 years' time.
So today's the day, well, one of the many days we're actually building the wood-fired oven.
One to go.
I've got Dennis Benson and his wife June down from Queensland. Arguably the best oven builder in Australia. All he does is build wood-fired ovens these days. He's so passionate about it. Got a few volunteers on site too.
Dennis learnt his craft from a Tasmanian legend, Alan Scott. Scott, who died in 2009, was revered around the world for his oven building skills. He took ancient village oven designs and updated them with modern building materials and techniques. There are now thousands of Alan Scott designed ovens around the world, and Dennis is going to help me build one of my own.
Once the hearth bricks are laid, we can set out the shape of the oven.
There is quite a science to this oven, and it's going to take over a month to complete.
I guess the thing about these ovens versus just something you'd knock up on, you know, an afternoon using some bricks you found at home is that they're really efficient.
It's all about creating thermal mass.
So they're really well designed to be insulated, so insulated underneath, insulated around the sides, insulated around the top.
A very solid base with inner and outer shells will allow the oven to get very hot, but more importantly, it will hold this heat for hours.
Flick it, Matthew.
What do I do?
Flick it.
Oh, like playing the banjo.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Today, we hope to complete the hearth and the bones of the oven.
Okay.
Tap him in tight now. You getting better?
Yeah, I think so.
You're doing good with your joints, Matthew. They're very good.
Okay. It's like chopping an onion, isn't it? It's as easy as that. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. How hard can it be, hey?
How hard can...
That's what you got to say.
How hard can it be? Yeah.
Before we all had one at home, ovens were communal. A village would have farmers to grow the wheat, millers to grind it, and a baker to bake it. Constructing this oven with friends and neighbours all under the watchful eye of master builder Dennis is a tradition that stretches back centuries.
There we go.
1 month later, and I have an oven.
This is the oven. It's pretty much finished, just needs a roof to go on. Before I put the roof on, I've got to dry it out, so we've been lighting fires in it. The thing is, when you build the oven, you use concrete and you add water. You actually put water in the oven, and that's the enemy of the oven. So now little fires to dry it out, getting bigger and bigger as we go.
One man who knows a lot about wood-fired ovens is my neighbour and bread baker, Cam.
Smoke.
I see smoke out of the chimney.
Yeah.
Look at it, it's a piece of work.
Cam owns the local Signet bakery, supplying a variety of beautiful wood-fired breads to the community.
In terms of baking, is that the sort of fire I need?
It's a good start, but I reckon you'd need a lot more hours worth of burn in there. You'd really want to soak that whole oven full of heat. And with this sort of wood, I'd probably make a sort of a Jenga stack, and it lets your wood breathe. You get air underneath the bottom and it burns up. And I stack my oven full, one whole oven load of Jenga stacks.
This oven will eventually cook all the bread for the restaurant, maybe some veggies, and we've built it big enough to take whole animals.
Here you go, mate.
But for now, it's best to start simply with some pizza.
What do you do?
Don't look at me for being an expert. You stretch it out evenly without putting holes in it, I think is the idea.
Oh, is it? You're not supposed to drop it?
No.
We're going to make a simple marinara pizza, which, contrary to popular belief, does not contain seafood. Rather, it's named after the Italian mariners who kept a simple meat and cheese-free sauce that wouldn't spoil on sea journeys.
Show me the trick, Cam.
Just put that in there.
Yeah, you show me how you do it.
It's a little bit of a interesting. Ta-da! And so the theory behind this is that should just flame up and cook the top of the pizza, where the heat on the bottom of the bricks will cook the bottom of your pizza.
Right. How many minutes?
Hot oven, good pizza, 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
And a half, 2 minutes. Should just load it in, bam, cook it straight up.
Wow.
I find that's one of the best. 2 to 3 minutes is what I reckon is.
Yeah. Well, she's puffing ready.
Yeah. Wow, that crust is coming up beautifully.
It's not darkening though, so it's probably not hot enough.
I reckon we needed a bit more fire in there.
A bit more fire. Next one. You might
Next
know
one.
it.
It may be the first time I've cooked in this oven, but already it feels part of the landscape here. And I'm so excited about the opportunities it presents and the hours I plan to spend here experimenting.
Here we go. Ta-da!
There you go. Whoa.
Grazie, grazie.
And that's always, I remember the good pizza. It's not crisp in the middle, it's soft, even though it's scorched. That's the real thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the deal.
Thank you, mate.
So happy with christening that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that garlic really comes through. Imagine if it spread evenly over the top.
As the restaurant crawls ever closer to opening, one area of the farm has raced ahead in leaps and bounds.
See pilot hole? I think I might have mentioned pilot hole.
Phil and Jono have completed the polytunnel and it's booming.
Things go crazy in here. These, cucumbers are, getting up to waist height. The tomatoes have really bolted. They went in much later than we would ever put tomatoes in, and yet they're doing better than they ever have.
It really feels like things are starting to come together, and we'll actually have food to serve at the restaurant opening. But you can't have an opening without bubbles, so Sadie and I are heading north to Stefano Lubiana Wines.
Famous for their sparkling
And their Pinot.
and their Pinot.
But their sparkling's really good.
Yeah. But what I only just found out recently is they're biodynamic.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, whatever that means.
Stefano Lubiana has 25 hectares of vines growing on the banks of the upper Derwent River.
Lubiana sounds Italian. You Italian?
Well, I was born in Melbourne, but my parents come from Italy, yeah.
Right.
Stefano, or Steve, comes from a long line of winemakers, and in the late 1980s decided to start his own vineyard specialising in sparkling wine.
And you're like organic or something now, or?
Yeah, so we've been farming biodynamically now for nearly 6 years.
Biodynamic agriculture began in the 1920s, driven by the ideas of Austrian Rudolf Steiner, whose education system you may have heard of. It has a heavy emphasis on soil health, but some of its more controversial practices are now being accepted by the mainstream.
We bought our first BD stirrer back in 1987 or something, before we even had the vineyard. So we were already sold on the idea of biodynamics before we even came here.
Before you started doing it?
Yeah.
What's a BD stirrer?
It's a machine that's used to stir the horn preparation and other preparations.
So the horn preparation, tell me about this. This is the one I've heard of. I think you put a
cow manure.
Cow manure in a horn or something?
In a horn, yes, and it's buried over the winter and then dug up, and then that is used as a... it's got life force, so it adds life and it really helps the soil. So we're all about working on the soil. We're not really feeding... We're not interested in feeding the vines. We just want to feed the soil, which then will feed the vines.
It all seems a little bit sort of hocus pocus, burying the horns, but now we know that what's going on is microbes. Is that the case? And by bacteria and
mycorrhiza in particular.
Yeah.
You know, mycorrhiza are long chain fungi.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this vine can draw minerals from 3 metres away, even though the roots aren't there. The mycorrhiza are like an extension of that of those root hairs.
Really?
Yeah.
Although the science is still catching up with the theory, it's thought that the microbes in the horn mix and ferment with the manure, resulting in a rich compost-like material called humus that spreads through the soil.
Well, I want to leave this place in a better condition than we found it, and for the generations to come. So I think that's respect for our workers, so that they don't have to handle chemicals. And then, as a bonus, I think we get a better quality wine. We get something that's the flavour from the vineyard, from this ground, is then transported into that wine that you drink.
We're lucky enough to be here on a day when the sparkling wine is going through a process known as degorging.
This is the bubbly?
It's the bubbly coming through now. So it's always crown sealed, and then neck freezer to freeze the sediment that's all fermented in the bottle. Yeah, that's all crystal clear, and all the sediments in that bit there.
In that bit there.
Yeah.
So how do you get that out?
We get that out by taking the crown seal off, and the pressure shoots that wad of ice out.
Straight off. Oh, and then it stops it immediately.
Yeah, stops it so it doesn't gush too much.
You don't get that.
And then we top it up with some more wine and a little bit of liqueur. Just squirts in 8 mils of liqueur every bottle. Liqueur, so it's sugar and cane sugar and wine, old wine we use.
All right.
Yeah. This is the corker and the wire here. So these are the corks we're putting in. That's your champagne cork before it goes in the bottle. You can see, so it gets compressed. Huge amount. It's really hard. That's to keep the pressure in the bottle.
And the wire goes on straight away?
Yeah, straight away. Otherwise, you could push it out. Yeah.
Right.
And then this shakes them because in the bottle, remember we put that liqueur in there?
Yeah.
See it?
Oh, they can see it.
Yeah. Have to mix it up. Otherwise, it could crystallise at the bottom of the bottle.
Is that what that bit is?
That's what that does. It does that 4 times. And then out.
Lastly, the corked bottles are washed, then labelled. For Sadie and I, it's finally time to try some wine and see if it's a good option for Fat Pig Kitchen.
It's the 5th generation of winemakers. Well, that'll work for us.
Yep.
So $10 a bottle, you reckon?
A bit more than that.
All this drinking of sparkling makes me think a celebration is not far off. And back at the farm, it's really starting to look like a restaurant. To the madness.
To the fun.
Whose idea was it?
Not mine.
This is exciting. It's like the first lighting of your stove.
The cooker's going, the heater's going. There's hot water in the taps. The toilets are flushing. It's going to happen.